Hi, my name's Kiefer. Welcome back to Pangean Illustrations. So, you was ready for another knockoff SCP file? And again, based on another Alton Towers roller coaster, with my personal favourite, the SMILER. So, if you didn't guess, I'm massively into theme parks, and Alton Towers is probably the best one near me. I love the theming, I love the areas, and the SMILER is just up there with my favourite rides. Probably, it's a toss-up between Nemesis and SMILER being my favourite, but I'm more inclined to go with SMILER since Nemesis got its update. Anyway, I hope you like the story of the SMILER-ack.
The Alton site is one of our locations that never ceases to amaze or horrify those learning of the bizarre and dangerous entities that are contained within its walls. So let's get down to business. The SMILER is one of the few entities that truly terrifies me. It's a monster that has no right having been brought into existence and should have been terminated the moment our agency caught a glimpse of it. But it appears as though it may be too late for that, and the creature must now be kept in containment. It was May 1st, 2012, and we were called to a small town in the West Midlands, of which we will not be disclosing the name of. One of our operatives, Miss Jade Wardley, was sent to investigate. What she discovered was disturbing. For context, the majority of patients at this location had been sectioned as a result of varying mental health disorders. Some of them had been convicted of murders or attempted murder, having pleaded insanity in court, but others had been placed in here for treatment to help with severe cases of depression or psychosis. For simplicity, the majority of people at the facility would not have been considered happy or joyed to be there. Yet all of them appeared to be smiling. She was greeted into the facility under the guise of Dr. Felicity Harding, and every single person she came into contact with was grinning from ear to ear, whether she had expected them to be violent and aggressive, or depressive. But the majority of nurses and doctors on site were, quite stupidly, under the impression that the improved mood of the patients was because of their treatments and a concoction of pills they were giving them. Of course, this wasn't the case. Wardley was toured around the facility by the lead doctor, a man by the name of Hector Rivaro, who was prideful, claiming that the facility would be the birthplace of a new miracle drug to cure depression, and that their facility would create new and innovative procedures for curing mental illnesses. The truth of the matter was that Wardley was already piecing together what was happening on the site, and for a man of science, Dr. Rivaro had a strong and dangerous imagination. Not long after the tour, Wardley left the site, knowing she needed to return the following night to investigate on her own terms. She waited outside the facility until the sun set and she knew Rivaro had left. At that moment, she walked up to the front door and knocked for one of the nurses to answer. A brown-haired, slim-built nurse by the name of Valerie Harper answered, and before Wardley could say anything, she cut her off, saying she was the one that reported the site to the agency. Valerie explained that there had been a few too many patients being sectioned into the facility, and she was one of the operatives tasked with creating relations within the government. She had been asked to research the facility and find out what was actually going on, and apparently the facility had had a major breakthrough 2 months prior, with more and more patients appearing each day having the same eerie smile on their faces. She also explained that she had taken to coming into the facility on a night because every time she arrived back on site in the mornings, a new person had been, let's say, infected with this bizarre smile and a more placid demeanour, suggesting whatever was happening was clearly a nocturnal event. The two decided to work together, searching from room to room for any sign of wrongdoing. They searched under the beds, in the cupboards, and behind the radiators, but they couldn't seem to find anything. They were in one of the patient's rooms when the patient, a 43-year-old woman, rolled over to one side, their arms slumping over the side of the bed and the rest of her body soon following suit, with them landing to the ground with a laugh. She held her hand over one eye, having banged it on the edge of the bed, but needed help to her feet to get back into bed. Both operatives, with it being a necessity to keep their cover and needing to be believed as being nurses, helped the patient. They were about to check she wasn't in any pain, but saw something glinting on the floor. On further inspection, they realised it was a type of lens painted and forged to look like an eye. Seeing this, and realising the patient was still holding their hand over their eye, with the same smile still plastered on their face, they made an assumption. They asked the patient if they could look at her eye, saying it was part of the checkup, but what they were really looking for, and what they found, was proof that not everything in this location was so black and white. When she removed her hand from her face, they saw that her normal eyes had been disguised using the lenses, and her real eyes were now pitch black with no pupil, just a yellow and white spiral constantly spinning where it should have been. Around her eye there was now yellow veins, and the smile on her face appeared to contort and stretch beyond its normal reach. To be sure this was the case with all of them, Valerie and Wardley checked a few more of the patient's eyes and found that at that point all of them had been treated in the same way. They were on their 5th patient when they saw something scamper out of the room. They followed it, backing it into a corner in the hallway. It was a small creature but didn't seem to be fully grown. It had 4 legs, 6 arms and 4 tails armed with stingers. Its body was a strange combination of spider and human anatomy, but had a smile that curved up at the cheeks and stretched up around its 14 eyes. At the time, it didn't have the same fangs and muscular structure as it does now, or the more metallic skin that has formed in places, suggesting that when Wardley and Valerie saw the creature, they were dealing with it as a toddler. It wasn't scared, but was hesitant to attack either of the operatives. It also seemed to be analysing them as if looking for something on either of them. What's now been realised is that this creature can telepathically find the moment when you have been happiest and separates them from anything dark or depressing. It then needs to inject a person with 4 stingers and feeds on their depression and fear from the past moment, and removes the possibility of ever feeling depressed, angry, or sad ever again. To prevent the thoughts coming back, the creature leaves a lock on the brain, forcing the victim to relive the happy memories for the rest of their lives, but removes the possibility of remembering or even creating new experiences for themselves that could cause the aforementioned feelings. As Valerie and Wardley stared at the creature, they soon figured out that it was trying to learn something about them, potentially a weakness that it could exploit. Obviously, they weren't particularly ready to find out exactly what this was, and so they decided to figure out a means of containing it for removal. So, to make sure the creature didn't evade them, Wardley kept a close eye on it, asking Valerie to grab anything she could to use as a cage. Valerie disappeared into the nearest room and ran around frantically looking for any deep trays or buckets, but she eventually grabbed a small pedal bin, emptying it out onto the ground and running out into the corridor. She slowed on reaching Wardley, but then there was the slightest hiss of air, like an object travelling quickly through a small tube, and Valerie fell to her knees. The bin clattered to the ground, and blood seeped into the fibres of her shirt through a hole in her chest. Behind her was a man standing staring at the 2 operatives. He was dressed in security attire, a dark blue coat and hat, black trousers, brown boots, and a golden badge. He stared a little longer, gun outstretched, aiming for Wardley's head, but he jolted the gun to the side, telling her to step away from the creature. Wardley lifted her hands up slowly and stepped away, but could see that the creature was reacting differently to the guard. It was in a stalking pose with its stingers raised above its crouched body and a snarl erupting from its throat. She stepped out of the way and allowed the creature to pounce, gripping onto his chest, tearing at his clothes. The beast jabbed all 4 stingers into his neck as they started pulsing with yellow light. It was a sight as the creature opened its mouth and its entire face peeled away, teeth acting similarly to a zipper, and behind it was an intense white light. Wardley watched on with disgusted fascination as the guard struggled to push the beast away. He then held the gun up to the creature, pressing the barrel against its temple. He held it there for a moment, but seemed to shake and writhe before screaming in pain. The whites of his eyes disappeared as the black of his pupils spread, shrouding them in darkness. Saliva spewed from his mouth as he roared for it to stop. In the end, he pulled the gun away from the creature's head and raised it to his own. Tears streaming down his face, dim spirals and yellow veins began appearing from his eyes. When he whispered, Chaos reigns. Turning off the safety and pulling the trigger, a spray of red covering the wall beside him. Wardley reported that she had seen nothing like it. She was petrified, watching on as the creature ate its fill of the man's flesh and then seemed to curl up on his chest. She managed to contain the creature in the bin and removed it from the location that very night. She took the creature to the nearest site, this being Alton, and it has remained there ever since. Over the past 13 years, we've been taking note of the creature's tendencies. It doesn't appear to need food, as it can subside on just fear, depression, and anger of its victims, but it will eat when given the opportunity to do so. Feeding the creature has even gained the handlers some leeway, as the creature resists attacking them and has even created positive relationships with many of them, in a similar way to animals at a zoo. To contain it, we have resorted to a labyrinth-like structure that extends below the surface of the ride's queue line. It's constantly shifting, with walls being programmed to move regularly so the creature doesn't become bored. The confines have been built using an experimental alloy being produced by our agency, one that is both strong and light, but also has the added bonus that it can stretch similarly to a spider's web. I will admit, this creature isn't inherently evil. It has proven itself to be more curious and playful, only ever eaten as much as it needs to stay nourished. The only reason we have to keep it contained is that it's too anomalous to be left in the world, and any positivity coming through is because our operatives have cared for the creature for an extended period of time, nurturing it. There is also the obvious fact that we can't allow civilians to be turned into husks by the being, as in their zombified state, we aren't sure what they are capable of. It would not only be dangerous to the public, but would also risk revealing our agency to the world. Anyone we do give to the SMILER Act has usually been sentenced to death, or are a significant threat to the agency itself. But I wouldn't put it past the creature to attack any of the other operatives who have not had a positive relationship with the creature. We do try to keep this entity happy, as at the end of the day we have had sole care of it since it was an infant. So it is down to us to ensure it lives as happy a life as we can give it. Luckily for us, it does appear to be nocturnal, so we can allow it to roam free around the facility at night. Granted, everyone is made aware, and the handlers can contain them again. I hope you found this, let's say, tale interesting and of some use. If you need any more details, those are at the discretion of Miss Wardley. Please, if there are any other entities you would like to learn about, place a note in the suggestion box. If that is all, enjoy the rest of your evening.
So, I hope you enjoyed that time lapse, and I hope you enjoyed the story. Please tell me what you think of the drawing on this one, because this is personally one of my favourite drawings, at least for now. I'm definitely going to be drawing more pictures based on the Wickerman, and ooh, should I do one based on Nemesis? Seeing as I'm already doing one that's technically based on Nemesis Subterra. Just stay tuned and you'll find out. Please like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff, and I'll see you again in the next video. Bye!